Welcome to the bright side of 50. Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome to another episode of the bright side of 50 with Carla Palmer. Thank you for being here. Every week you come back, you tune in, you send me messages about how much you're loving the podcast, and I really appreciate your presence. So I want to start off every episode by saying thank you for joining in. Today we're going to be talking about dating men who are separated. Just going to get right down to the point because I think it's a really important topic that we need to address. I have had several friends who have dated men who have been separated, and I've seen how they have changed. The women, my friends, I've seen how they have changed while dating these men. I have seen how their self-worth has deteriorated. I have seen how their confidence has gone down. And it's because that the man is not fully showing up the way that they want the man to show up. Let me start with a couple of statistics. 20% of separated people reconcile, right? So they are married. They decide that they want to separate. About 20% go back to being in a relationship, a married relationship after the separation. And then you have 80% go on to get a divorce. So you might be thinking, oh, well, people who get separated, 80% of them are going to get divorced. So me dating a man who is separated means that there is a highly likelihood that he is going to divorce the wife that he's married to. That's fine, right? Those statistics, if you're looking at those statistics and you're saying, oh, that means that I am highly likely going to be able to be fully with this individual. That's fine. Those are numbers that you can go to. But really what you need to ask yourself is, if you have outlined, and I have some notes here, if you have outlined the desires of your heart, if you have outlined the standards and set them and said to yourself, I don't want to veer off of these boundaries, these standards that I've set for myself as a woman who values herself highly, right? You know, they always talk about the high value woman. Let's not use those terms exactly. You are a woman who highly values herself. Sis, you're that girl. You care about yourself. You care about the girl that you are, right? The woman who is taking care of herself. You have taken care of your spirit. You have worked on your healing. You've been on your healing journey, and maybe you're still kind of on it because we always kind of are working on something, right? But you've taken the time to do all of these wonderful things that are going to elevate your spirit, elevate your mind, elevate your attractiveness, right? Because you are a healed woman and you're out there and you're saying, I want someone who too has taken the time to work on themselves and to be in a position to be truly who I need him to be, truly who I have outlined and said that I want in a mate, truly who I've said I want in a husband, because there are many women out here in midlife. I don't care if, you know, all of the men or a lot of the men who are out here in our age group who've been married before, they have kids, all of that, you can still say that you want to get married. But you have to have a standard for what your husband needs to show up as. All of the things that your husband, or many of the things, the key things, the core things that your husband needs to show up with. So listen, do you think God is going to send you someone who is not fully available to be what you need him to be to you? Do you think God is going to say, oh, Carla, here's a guy for you. He's still married, but here's a guy for you. God's not going to send that to me. And God's not going to send that to you. If you have been praying for something specific, I highly doubt that in your prayer, you are saying, I want a man who is separated. I want a man who can't fully be what I need him to be to me because he's committed to somebody else and is legally married on paper. I don't think those are in your values. They're definitely not in what I have outlined that I would like to have in a mate if I were to find or get connected to someone in this lifetime. That's not in my list. And I know that that is not on your list. So why, sis, why would you settle for that? That is not operating with an abundance mindset. That is not operating with a mindset that says, I trust God. I trust that God is going to send me someone that is right for me. God is not going to send you someone who is a separated man. And if you're a man listening to this, he is not going to send you someone who is a separated woman. They are going to be fully available to be with you. I don't know about you, but I don't want somebody else's husband. I don't want a man who shows up and says, hey, I want to date you, but I'm going through a divorce, or I am separated and we're trying to figure out what to do, but we're really not going to get back together. So let's start dating. I'm not signing up for that. And I don't think that you should sign up for that either. Okay, I have a couple more points that I want to make sure that I address. Hey, sis. Hey, I just wanted to take a moment to ask you, have you subscribed to The Bright Side of 50 with Carla Palmer? If you have not, could you please take a moment, if you like the podcast, take a moment now to hit the subscribe button so that you become a subscriber. Turn on your notifications so that you're notified when a new episode drops. Okay. Also follow me on Instagram. I am The Bright Side of 50 over there on Instagram too. Thank you so much. Now I'll let you get back to the episode. When you sign up for dating a separated man, what you are saying is you are not worthy of someone who is truly available. You are willing to lower your basic standards, because to me, a basic standard would be send me somebody who's not married. Send me somebody who is available to be with me and me only. That's what that prayer would look like for me. So you're saying to yourself that you're not worthy of that when you say, okay, I'll date you. I know you're still married, but I'll date you. Listen, many of us have been there. I'm going to tell you a story. I have been there, but only for a second. And I wasn't sleeping with this man. But when I was in college, I met this guy who was really, really lovely. We bonded. We really liked each other. We spent a lot of time together studying and doing all these things, right? We never really dated, but we really liked each other. We left, graduated. This was when I was in community college. Went on to do our own things. And then I ran into him again when he was married at the time, and he was a pastor, and he invited me to the church that he was pastoring. I was like, oh, sure. Like, I'll come. So I went, and it was a lovely service. He preached. I met his wife, his kids, all of that. Right. And then, I think that was it. I don't think I started going to church there or anything. This was years ago. I didn't start going to church there or anything, but he had my number, right? Because we had exchanged numbers because he invited me to the church. Well, years later, he ended up being separated from this woman, and he reached out to me, was talking to me in confidence and talking about like how their relationship was over and he was going to get divorced. And so he started like coming by my house, and we weren't like doing anything intimate, but we were having intimate conversations that we shouldn't have been having. I shouldn't have been a sounding board for him while he was separated. I shouldn't have been letting this man come to my house and have these conversations about what he should have been having conversations with a therapist, a marriage counselor, or his wife. I shouldn't have allowed that door to be open to get involved in that. We ended up going to dinner one night, and there were feelings that were developing between me and this guy. And I had to cut that thing off so fast. Something just dropped in my spirit and was like, Carla, this is when I really desired a relationship, like I really wanted to be with somebody, right? Dropped in my spirit and was like, Carla, this is not what you have been asking God for. Yes, he is handsome. Yes, he is smart. Yes, he is saying he loves the Lord. Yes, he knows the word. Yes, he's saying all the right things. This man is a married man. This man belongs to another woman. Why would you put yourself in this situation? You've already crossed a boundary by allowing yourself to be a sounding board for this man and what he's going through. Why would you move further and deeper into this thing and get involved romantically, right? Because like I said, feelings had started happening. Get involved romantically with somebody who cannot be fully yours. And I cut that thing off. And he was like, what do you mean you don't want to be friends? And I was like, no, I'm developing feelings for you. It's not right. You know it's not right. As a man of God, you know it's not right. And I know you're saying, you're not going to be together anymore. You're going to get a divorce, but you're not divorced. And this is not the right thing to do. And because I know that, and because I know better, and this is not in alignment with what I said that I wanted from myself, and this is not in alignment with what I asked God to send me, I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to be your sounding board anymore. You can't come over to my house anymore. I don't want to go to dinner. I don't want to do any of those things. So that thing ended, right? Whatever that was, it ended. Well, let me say this. About maybe a year later, I went to visit a church, a local church in Inglewood. I go to this church. I'm sitting there with my son, and in walks this man and his wife and their kids, and they're sitting there and they're worshiping in church together because this man stayed with his wife, did not get a divorce, may not have ever been on his way to getting a divorce, but there he is sitting in church, praising the Lord with his family. I thought to myself, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for dropping that into my spirit, bringing me back to my senses, bringing me back to what I said that I wanted, bringing me back to what I asked you for and what showed up not being what I had asked you for. Thank you for helping me realize very quickly before I got into something that could have been a severe heartbreak for myself, and my spirit could have been crumbled. My self-worth and self-esteem could have been on the floor in the garbage had I moved forward with doing something that I knew in my heart wasn't the right thing to do. Now, did he look around and see me at church? I don't know if he ever saw me. I can't remember. But I just remember thinking to myself, you knew better than that in the beginning. You knew better than that, but you stayed in conversation with this man. You started letting him vent and talk about like, oh, I need to get this thing handled and I'm not going to be with this woman. Like, you allowed yourself to get in those conversations, and you shouldn't have. As a woman who highly values herself, you knew better than that. And I'm saying to you, as a woman who highly values herself, because you wouldn't be here listening to my podcast if you weren't, because I am often talking to women who are like-minded, right? Like me, right? We're all very similar. I believe the people who follow this podcast, we are very similar. We all know right from wrong. We all know what we said that we wanted for ourselves. We're all like intelligent women, but sometimes we let the heart get in the way, and sometimes we let desperation get in the way, and sometimes we veer off of the path that we've been on that's been good, even though, he hasn't shown up yet. Mr. Right, Mr. Fully Available, all the things that we've said that we wanted, standard wise in a mate, he hasn't shown up yet. And so sometimes we allow ourselves to get in these desperate moments where we're like, well, this is about as good as it gets. He's not married in the house with the woman anymore. He says he's getting a divorce. I think it's okay for me to move forward with this. It's not. It's not. And likely, highly likely, that man is not going to be the man that you need him to be, because one, you're dating him while he's separated, which means he's still in the relationship somehow, even if it's just on paper. You haven't allowed this man to process through his healing. You have not allowed this man to be fully single for a while and really get a grasp on where his life is at that moment, being single, processing through the marriage and what happened and what didn't work and why it deteriorated, instead of jumping into something when the marriage is not fully over and starting something new with you and bringing all of that baggage and all of that unhealed stuff into a new relationship that you all are thinking is a good idea to start together. It's not. It rarely is. Yes, I know. You know, this person who was dating this man who was separated, and he got divorced finally, and they got married, and they have a wonderful relationship. Yes, we've seen it. It's rare, but we've seen it. That's not the norm. That is not typically what happens. And sis, I'm telling you, you shouldn't put yourself in that situation. You shouldn't sign up for that. You should value yourself enough to know that God is going to send you the person that is right for you and ready for you. What if you met the man that, hey, maybe it is the man for you, but you need to allow that man to do what he needs to do, handle his business before he comes to you. Maybe you've met him. I don't know. But while he is separated and going through what he needs to go through, that is not the time for you to be with that man. I don't know who this is for, but this is for somebody. Here's another stat that I found. 60% of second marriages end in divorce, and 73% of third marriages end in divorce. We are women in midlife. 9 times out of 10, I should have looked up this stat, but most of us will probably be meeting men who have been married before. We will probably be meeting men who have children and sometimes grandchildren. Sometimes we meet men who have children who are under the age of 18. These stats of the 60% of second marriages ending in divorce and 73% of third marriages ending in divorce really says to me, we want to start this thing off as strong as possible. We want to start this thing off as strong as possible. If you have met a man who is separated and you think that eventually he's going to get divorced and marry you, look at these stats. There are high percentages of that marriage not ending well, or that marriage ending, period. So don't start off with the thing already a little bit off track because you started dating the man when he was separated. You want to give yourself as good of a chance as possible for that second marriage or that third marriage of you and this man to end up being a really successful, beautiful relationship where you're both going into it fully available and fully healed and fully committed to making this thing a really beautiful thing. A really beautiful thing. It can happen. You don't have to be the 63%, the 60% or the 73%. You don't have to be. You could be that percentage that is on the percentage of things being really, really wonderful. But the likelihood of those things being really, really wonderful and that marriage being vibrant and alive and fully yours together and you're doing life in a beautiful way, the likelihood of it not being that is when you start off in this gray area where this man is not fully divorced and you've already started dating him. Okay. All right. So the average length of separation is 2 years before couples decide to get back together. So there are times when a couple will be separated for a couple years and maybe they're out there doing their own thing, or maybe they're not. And then they decide that they want to get back together. So what if you were the one who was dating this man or this woman during these 2 years? What happens to you, boo? What happens to you, sis? Do you really want to put yourself in that situation? Let me tell you something. I read this stat. I know I wrote it down here. It says that it was something about women being the people who lose out the most as far as finances being lowered when they end up getting divorced. So they're with this man. They both have an income, but his income is likely higher than hers. Oh, these days, I don't know, but it's 2 incomes, right? It's a 2-income household. You've purchased homes together and assets and all of this stuff. And then you end up getting a divorce. There is a highly likelihood that you as a woman who is getting divorced will not fare as well as the man. It is highly likely that your quality of life will change significantly and his might not change much at all. So let me tell you something, sis. That woman wants to keep her man. She is going to fight for her marriage. And if they've been together long enough to have had some sort of, highs in that relationship, she knows what to put out there to fight for her man to come back home to her. Do you want to be in the middle of that? Do you want to be in the middle of that? I don't. And I really don't think that you do. And the more we work on ourselves and the more we build our confidence and our self-worth, the more we pray and stay connected to God, then the less likely our chances are of getting into situations like this with some woman's husband. I said it. Yes, he's separated. But sis, that's somebody's husband. That is a man who belongs to someone else and cannot be fully your guy. I don't care if he's taking you around his friends. I don't care if he's taking you around his family. They are likely talking about that situation and talking badly about you when you are not around. Maybe they're acting like they've accepted you. Maybe they're acting like, oh my gosh, we're so happy to have you around. They know the wife. And even if they don't really like the wife, for whatever reason, you're still the other woman. You're still the mistress. You're still the side chick. That man belongs to somebody else, no matter how much he is taking you in front of other people. And then on the flip side, you might have a man who's telling you, hey, I'm separated and I don't really want to be out publicly with another woman until my divorce is final because I, want to uphold my image as an upstanding man, right? You have that going on too. Let me tell you something. I was listening to a very, I don't know if he's very famous, but he's a well-known preacher, pastor. I was listening to an episode of a podcast that he was on with his new wife. And they were talking about how they got connected and how they met and how they didn't date publicly because he was going through a divorce. When they met, he was separated and he had been separated for some time. And he was saying that his wife wouldn't give him a divorce, or she was making, a hoopla out of a bunch of different things. And he hadn't yet been able to finalize this divorce, but he had met this wonderful lady that he's now married to. And something that he said to me was very irresponsible as a pastor on this podcast about marriage. It was so irresponsible to me because I believe that they are often seen as people who should be more cautious with their words and how they're operating and how they're putting things out there. What this man said was, I fell in love with this woman. We started seeing each other, but we weren't being intimate. But I wasn't going to let, what did he say? He said he wasn't going to let legalities stop him from being with this woman that he had fallen in love with. So you're telling people as a pastor on a platform that is about marriage and finding love, that it's okay to go ahead and move forward when you found somebody that you think you could fall in love with or that you've fallen in love with. It's okay to move forward with that while you're still married. That's an irresponsible thing to say on a podcast out loud, telling people what you had done. And he also said that they weren't going out and they weren't like being out in public and holding hands and doing all of this stuff because he didn't want the scrutiny. He didn't want, people doing the math and like being all up in his business. Well, you just told the world that it's okay if you were separated to go ahead and move forward. And you are a Christian man who is leading a flock of people. And you're saying that that was something that you were okay with doing, which to me is saying to other people, don't let legalities stop you from doing what you want to do. It was very irresponsible. And when I heard that is when I decided that I wanted to do this podcast episode. None of us are perfect. I understand that. But I wanted to do this podcast episode in case you heard that episode too, or in case you've heard things like this. Girl, go ahead and move forward. If it's a good man, he'll work it out and, he'll be divorced and you'll be able to be with him. No, don't move forward. Don't sign up for that. It's not worth it. You are taking a huge risk. It's already a risk being out here single in these streets, trying to date and find the good people that are out here. Because the man is still married makes him unavailable. Don't do it. Don't sign up for it. You are just signing up for a bunch of mess that you don't want to put yourself through. All right. So I have this thing that I wrote here. If he hasn't gotten divorced after being separated for over a year, ask yourself, why should I get into that? This man has been divorced over a year. Average cost of divorce is about $7,000. We're in midlife. We are trying to be with people who are financially stable. You mean to tell me after a year, this man doesn't know what he needs to do? After a year, he can't find $7,000 to go ahead and get a divorce. After a year, he can't figure out what piece of the property or properties or assets needs to go to his wife that he's about to divorce, and so that he can move on. He hasn't figured that out yet. He hasn't figured that out yet. Sis, let me go back to this. You should adhere to the boundaries and the values and the morals that you've set for yourself when you are out here in these single streets. That's it. Go back to, I am a child of God. I have asked God for something very specific. My boundaries, my values, my morals say that I need X, Y, and Z before I move into any sort of romantic relationship with anybody. These are the things that I need to be set up already when I'm moving forward. And if that is not so, then that is not something that you are going to move forward on. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like I said, I don't know exactly who in the audience this is for. Maybe you are currently in a situation like this. Maybe, just maybe, you're listening to this before you get into a situation like this. Maybe this is something that God wanted you to hear, because next week you're going to meet a man who is separated. And you're going to refer back to this podcast episode and say, nope, I'm not doing that. That is not the way a woman who highly values herself moves through being single and being readily available to date someone that will eventually lead to marriage. They don't operate like that. They don't date men who are separated. Men, you don't date women who are separated when you are looking for a life partner to get married to. You don't do that. So that's not what we're doing. Only invest your time and energy and affection in a man who is truly available to you. Think dignity. Think dignity. Think self-worth. Think high values and morals. Think that. Okay? Be true to what you said and what you outlined that you wanted. Let them work that separation out on their own. You were not there to be their therapist. You were not there to walk them through it. You were not there to help them figure out paperwork. You were not there to help them talk through like how that's going to look if they still have kids. You are not there to be anything like that. You are not there to be their sounding board. You don't have time for that. You don't have energy for that, right? We're in midlife, guys. We're in the second half of our life, and we're trying to live it on the bright side, which is the right side. And that is the side that we are making choices to move through life and things that bring us in ways that bring us joy. Things that bring us joy. Relationships that bring us joy. You cannot clearly understand what a man is going through who is divorcing or who is separated and thinking they want to get divorced. You're only hearing his side of the story. That's all you're hearing is what he is telling you. You are only hearing how terrible the relationship was, or how his ex-wife or soon to be ex-wife or separated partner or wife did this. You're only hearing one side of the story. There's another side. Trust me. Trust me. There is another side, and you may never hear it. And guess what, guys? There are men out there who are saying that they are separated, and they are still living in that home with that woman. They are still in that house with that woman. They are still married. They are still seeing her get out of the shower looking good. I don't care how mad he was at her earlier that day or last week. That is still an available situation to be intimate in. So if a man is telling you he's separated, you don't go to his house, or some men even have places that are, side apartments where they still have, these relationships, but they go home to their wife. So don't do it. Don't sign up for that. You can even see, like, sometimes on these apps, men will say that they're separated. So they're fully telling you, I'm separated, but I'm out here in these dating streets doing my thing. Don't sign up for that either. Don't sign up for that either. Okay, so I was looking at this. Oh my gosh, what is this guy's name? Oh, I need to give him his credit. I was looking at his YouTube, and he was talking about not dating, how women shouldn't be dating men who are separated. This lady made this comment. I have a few comments that I screenshot, and I'm gonna get his name. His name is Sid Farrell. I don't know if you know Sid Farrell, but he's funny. But anyway, she said, I let the mistress have my ex-husband. They are married now, and he begged to come back to me a week before their wedding and still comes begging to come home to this day. She says, good luck to her because he hasn't changed. She was more concerned with winning, right, when they were separated. And she can't think of a single person who is more deserving of his turmoil than her. So sometimes these women these men are separated from, they know that man is out there and he's showing up all raggedy in these relationships with these side chicks. I said it, side chicks, because that's what we are. When we do things like that, that's what it is. I saw another comment that says, I dated a man who was separated for 4 years. And then when his wife said, I want you back, he left and ripped me to pieces. Ladies, it's not worth it. You will never be number one. I promise, don't do it. So that was one. It doesn't matter if they are in the same house or not. The husband is still going to sleep with his wife. My husband moved out when we were separated, and he's seeing someone else, and he's still sleeping with me. And the other woman does not know. So, right, it's like what I was saying, just let it end. Let that man be fully divorced. All right. Let it be settled. Let it be, died down for a year or two before you hop into that thing. Because you were signing up. I'm telling you, you're likely signing up for something that is not in alignment with what you said that you wanted. I'm telling you that. You're likely signing up for something that is not in alignment with what you said and outlined and prayed about getting. Okay? I think there might have been one more that was really good. We've been dating for 2 years. It seems they are separated. She has a man, but I'm not comfortable knowing he's still married if he's not divorced. By September, I'm cutting it off. Now, she wrote this, looks like a couple months before September. So, sis, why are you giving it a couple more months? After you've been dating him for 2 years, why are you giving it a couple more months? The man is not going to do what you need him to do, right? Why are we getting into these situations where we are having to give ultimatums and try to convince some man who is separated that we are the person that they are going to be with, that they should be with, because we have more to offer, or we're this and we're what she wasn't. I am not in the business of trying to convince somebody why they should be with me over a person that they were married to for several years. Someone that they may have built a whole life and family with for several years, for 20 years, for 10 years, for 25, 30 years. I am not in the business of trying to convince somebody why they should be with me. I am not in the business of making myself available emotionally, physically, mentally to support somebody through a separation and on into a divorce. I am not in the business of that. I am not in the business of giving my time and energy, my precious time and energy and beautiful spirit to someone who is not fully available to receive all that I have to offer. And you should not either. You should not either. All right, I'm going to end this episode. I hope that, you took something away from this. Maybe it's something that you need to send to somebody in your life who is in a situation where they are dating a man who is separated. Maybe they've been with him newly for a couple months. Maybe they've been in it for a few years. Maybe they need to hear this episode. Maybe this episode was not for you, but maybe it was for them. This is an episode. I always say these episodes are episodes that you should share out. This is an episode that should be shared out because I know a few women in my own circle who are operating out of desperation, who are operating out of scarcity. There's not a lot of men out there, so I'm going to take what I can get. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that, and you shouldn't do that. What you should be focused on is your purpose in life. You should be focused on your happiness and your joy and your peace, and being open to only situations where both of you are readily available and healed enough to start dating each other in a way that is a clean slate. All right. That's all you should be open for and open to. And that's all you should be telling the women in your life who are your friends. If you're a male and you have a female friend, or you're women in your sisterhood or whatever, you should be telling each other the good stuff. That's not a good situation that you should be in. That's not something you should be signing up for. Sis, I know that God has something better for you. Have you prayed about this? Because this doesn't seem like something that I've heard you say that you wanted. I've never heard you say, hey, I want to date a man who's separated and not fully available to be what I need in my life and what I've prayed for and asked God for. I haven't heard you say that. So I really want you to be the person who is sharing this episode out. Somebody's going to receive it. Somebody's going to need it. And you're going to help somebody in their life by sharing this episode. So thank you for being here. Thank you for, listening to another episode of The Bright Side of 50 with Carla Palmer. And I look forward to the next episode with you. Until the next time, take care, guys. Bye-bye.